It was supposed to be just another Sunday night showdown. Chicago Bears versus the Washington Commanders. Week 6 of the 2025 NFL season. But no one could have predicted the chaos, the heartbreak, and the scandal that would erupt before, during, and after the game. What started as a heated matchup between two teams fighting for redemption turned into one of the most explosive nights in NFL history. A night filled with emotional meltdowns, shocking confrontations, and accusations that left fans gasping in disbelief. Cameras caught everything: players storming off the field, coaches shouting across the sidelines, and even a moment so tense in the locker room that security had to intervene. Rumors spread like wildfire. Was there a betrayal within the Bears locker room? Did a player secretly leak the team's playbook to the Commanders? And what really happened between the quarterback and the head coach after that disastrous interception in the third quarter? Fans are still reeling, analysts are scrambling for answers, and the entire league is on edge. Tonight, we break it all down, every scream, every tear, every shocking twist from the most dramatic game of the 2025 NFL season. Buckle up, because this isn't just football anymore. This is war. The tension was already thick in the air hours before kickoff. Chicago was buzzing with anticipation, fans crowding the parking lots, faces painted, jerseys gleaming under the afternoon sun. Everyone thought it would be a classic football night, a redemption game for the Bears after two crushing losses, and a chance for the Commanders to prove they weren't just a mid-season fluke. But what no one knew was that behind the locker room doors, something was already breaking apart. Whispers floated down the hallway. Quiet arguments that were supposed to stay private but couldn't. Some players avoided eye contact. Others sat still, tapping their feet nervously. The usual locker room energy, laughter, chants, music was replaced by heavy silence. Mason Trent sat in front of his locker, staring at the playbook in his hands. He wasn't reading. His mind was spinning. His teammate and supposed best friend, wide receiver Elijah Cross, hadn't spoken to him since Thursday's practice. Something had changed between them, and everyone noticed. "You good, bro?" Rookie running back Darius Lee asked, trying to lighten the mood. Mason forced a small grin, nodding, but it didn't reach his eyes, because deep down, he knew. Elijah had found out. The secret he'd been hiding for months, the one that could end his career, was no longer safe. Just across the hall, Elijah was pacing. His phone buzzed nonstop with messages from an anonymous number, screenshots, audio clips, even a short video. Someone had recorded Mason's private meeting with an assistant coach, a meeting that revealed more than game strategy. Rumors said Mason had met with the Commanders' defensive coordinator weeks before preseason, not for strategy, but for something more personal. "If this gets out," Elijah muttered under his breath, "he's done." But he wasn't sure whether to expose it or confront his friend face-to-face as the players took the field for warm-ups. The atmosphere was electric, but the undercurrent of unease was impossible to ignore. Cameras caught Mason and Elijah avoiding each other completely. The commentators noticed too, whispering about tension between teammates. Fans picked up on it instantly, flooding social media with speculations. "Something's off with the Bears tonight," one fan tweeted. "They're not locked in. Feels weird." It was the calm before a storm that no one could predict. When the game began, it was brutal from the start. The Bears' offense stumbled through the first quarter. Passes were off, timing was gone, and communication between Mason and Elijah, once flawless, was completely shattered. On the sidelines, Coach Ramirez shouted himself hoarse, "Lock in, Mason." "What's going on out there?" Mason nodded, pretending to understand, but his mind was somewhere else. Every time he glanced at Elijah, he saw betrayal in his teammates' eyes. "He knows," Mason whispered to himself. "He knows everything." By the second quarter, Washington had already scored twice, taking advantage of Chicago's confusion. The Bears fans began to grow restless, booing from the stands. Mason threw a desperate pass toward Elijah in an attempt to make up ground. But Elijah hesitated for just a split second, enough for a defender to intercept it. The crowd gasped, then roared in disbelief. The Commanders returned the interception for a touchdown. The camera zoomed in on Mason's face, pale, frozen, and furious. He turned toward Elijah, shouting something the microphones barely picked up. "You did that on purpose." Elijah shot back instantly. "You're lucky I didn't tell them what you did." The sidelines erupted. Assistant coaches tried to separate them, but it was too late. The argument was caught on national television, replayed in slow motion for millions of viewers. "Something's definitely wrong between Trent and Cross," the commentator said gravely. "That's not just a miscommunication, that's personal." Fans were stunned. The tension that had simmered all week had just boiled over for everyone to see. At halftime, the locker room exploded. Helmets slammed against the floor, voices rose to shouts. Coach Ramirez demanded answers, but none came. Mason sat in silence, sweat dripping down his face, while Elijah stood by the lockers, refusing to sit down. "You want to talk about loyalty?" Elijah snapped finally. "You went behind our backs, man. You sold us out." The room fell silent. Darius looked between them, confused. "Sold us out? What's he talking about?" Mason's jaw tightened. "Don't start with that, Eli," he said quietly. "You don't know the full story." "The full story." Elijah shouted back. "I saw the messages, Mason. I saw you talking to their coordinator. What were you doing trading plays for money? Or was it something else?" Mason slammed his helmet to the ground. "It wasn't like that. You think I'd betray this team?" Elijah took a step forward, trembling with rage. "I don't know, man. You've been different. Hiding stuff, acting shady. And now look at us down by 3 scores. The whole world watching us fall apart." Coach Ramirez tried to calm them, but the room was beyond repair. Cameras outside the locker room caught muffled shouting and security stepping in. By the time the team re-emerged for the second half, Bears were a shell of themselves. The third quarter began with more disaster. Mason's passes missed their mark, Elijah refused to look back at him, and Washington took full advantage. Fans in the stands began chanting angrily, some even calling for the backup quarterback. But amid the chaos, one person was watching from the press box: Lana Trent, Mason's sister. She knew the truth behind all the whispers. Mason hadn't been leaking plays for money. He'd been meeting with the Commanders coordinator because of Lana. She and the coordinator, Marcus Hayes, had been in a secret relationship. One Mason tried to end when he found out Marcus had been using her to gain inside info about the Bears. Mason had met Marcus privately to threaten him to stay away, and Marcus had recorded everything. Lana buried her face in her hands as she watched her brother's career unravel. On live TV, "He's not a traitor," she whispered to herself, tears forming. "He was protecting me." But no one knew that. Not the team, not the fans, not even Elijah. And Marcus. He was loving every minute of the chaos he'd caused. As the clock ticked down toward the end of the third quarter, something shifted. Elijah caught Mason's eye after another incomplete pass. For a moment, their anger gave way to confusion and fear. Because standing on the sideline just behind the Commander's bench was Marcus himself. He was smiling, holding his phone, and then, in a chilling moment broadcast to millions, Marcus raised the phone toward the field as if recording something or someone. Mason froze. Elijah followed his gaze, realizing instantly that this went deeper than they thought. Marcus wasn't just stirring rumors. He was controlling the narrative. "What is he doing here?" Elijah whispered. "He's supposed to be suspended." Mason's voice shook as he answered. "He's the reason this is all happening." Elijah blinked, still processing. "Then why didn't you tell me?" Mason didn't reply. He didn't have to. The look in his eyes said everything: guilt, fear, regret. The fourth quarter was about to begin, and neither man knew just how bad things were about to get. And up in the stands, Lana made a decision that would change everything. She grabbed her phone, opened her messages, and started typing. "If you air that video, Marcus," she wrote, "I'll tell everyone the truth about what you did. I'm done protecting you." But Marcus was already one step ahead. The message he sent back made her blood run cold. Too late. Check the Jumbotron. As the stadium lights dimmed for the final quarter, the crowd's attention shifted to the massive screen above the field, and that's when everything fell apart. The moment the Jumbotron flickered on, the stadium went silent. The fans expected a replay, maybe a highlight from earlier in the game. Instead, what they saw froze them in disbelief. It was footage, shaky, grainy, but unmistakable, of Mason Trent sitting across from Marcus Hayes in what looked like a diner. The audio was distorted, but fragments were clear enough to make jaws drop. "Look, I'll do what I have to do," Mason's voice said, tense and low. "Just keep her name out of it." Aku's voice came back, slick and confident. "Then you know what I need, Trent? Plays, strategy, whatever it takes. I'm not asking twice." The crowd gasped, a collective sound of betrayal that echoed through the stadium. Social media exploded within seconds. Hashtags like #TrentGate and #Betrayal in the Windy City began trending worldwide. Commentators didn't know what to say. One muttered, if that video is real, Mason Trent's career might be over. Down on the field, Mason's face drained of color. He looked up at the screen, helpless, as his teammates turned to him with disbelief. Elijah stared, his anger melting into confusion. "What the hell is that, Mason?" he demanded. "Did you actually—" But Mason cut him off, shaking his head violently. "It's not what it looks like." The game continued mechanically, but everyone knew the night had already shifted from football to something darker. The Bears' offense fell apart completely. Washington players looked at each other with awkward glances. Even they seemed uneasy about what was happening. Marcus sat smugly in the press box, sipping from a cup of coffee, watching the chaos unfold exactly as he'd planned. He wasn't supposed to be there at all, but someone had pulled strings, okay? And now he was right where he wanted to be. Center stage of destruction, back on the sideline. Coach Ramirez grabbed Mason by the shoulder. "You're telling me that video is fake?" Mason nodded desperately. "He's twisting everything. I met him to protect my sister, Coach. He's been blackmailing me." Ramirez narrowed his eyes. "Why didn't you come to me sooner?" Mason's answer was soft, almost broken. "Because he said he'd ruin her life." Ramirez looked at him for a long moment, then exhaled sharply. "Well, kid, he just ruined yours." In the stands, Lana Trent could barely breathe. Fans around her began shouting at the screen, some booing, some demanding answers. A group of reporters in the press section started rushing out, phones in hand, to break the story before anyone else. Lana knew she had to act fast. She called Elijah's phone, praying he'd answer. "Please, Eli, pick up," she muttered under her breath. Finally, he did. "Lana, what's going on? Is that video real?" She spoke fast, panicked. "No, it's Marcus. He's setting Mason up. He's doing this because of me, because of you," Elijah said, frowning. "What are you talking about?" Lana's voice trembled. "Marcus and I were together, but when I found out he was using me to get information on the team, Mason tried to stop him. Marcus recorded him and twisted everything to make him look guilty." There was a long pause on the other end. "So this whole thing," Elijah began, "is my fault," Lana finished. "He's been threatening me for weeks." Elijah clenched his jaw, anger replacing confusion. "Then he's going to regret this." As Elijah hung up, his focus shifted. For the first time that night, he looked at Mason not with anger, but with realization. "You should have told me," he said quietly, stepping closer. Mason didn't need his eyes. "I wanted to, but I thought I could fix it before it got this bad." Elijah nodded slowly. "We can still fix it, but not if we keep playing like this." The fourth quarter clock showed 12 minutes left. The Bears were down by 21. The stadium's energy was poison. Half the fans had turned on their own team. The other half were chanting Mason's name in defiance of the scandal. Elijah walked over to him and muttered, "Let's give them something to remember. We can figure out the rest later." Mason nodded. For the first time that night, they were on the same side again. The next drive began with renewed energy. Mason's passes were sharper, Elijah's routes cleaner. The two of them moved in perfect sync, almost as if they'd shaken off the weight of the scandal for a brief moment. They scored a quick touchdown, then forced a turnover on defense. Fans started believing again. Maybe they can still pull it off, the commentator said, his tone cautious but hopeful. But Marcus wasn't done yet. As the Bears celebrated their brief comeback, another video clip hit social media, this time a full conversation between Lana and Marcus from weeks ago. Her voice was shaky as she begged him to stop. "You said you wouldn't go after Mason." Marcus laughed coldly. "He made it personal when he told me to stay away from you." This was the final blow. Reporters in the stadium started broadcasting live updates. New evidence shows the scandal might involve not just Trent, but his family in the middle of the field. Mason's phone buzzed violently on the sideline. He saw the notification and realized what had happened. His sister's voice was out there now, her privacy shattered, her reputation destroyed. He slammed the phone down in frustration. "He's dragging her into this now," he muttered. Elijah put a hand on his shoulder. "Then we don't let him win. Not here. Not tonight." Meanwhile, up in the press box, Marcus received a text that made his smirk fade. "Check your car," it read. He frowned, looking around, suddenly uneasy. Lana was gone from her seat down near the locker tunnel. Lana was moving fast, determination replacing fear. She had proof on her phone, the original unedited video that Marcus had doctored to frame Mason. She'd kept it hidden, terrified of releasing it, but now she had nothing left to lose. She needed to get to the broadcast team before the game ended. On the field, time was running out. The Bears scored again, cutting the lead to just 14. Every play was chaos and adrenaline, every throw filled with desperate energy. Mason wasn't just fighting for the game, he was fighting for his name. The crowd's mood began to shift again, torn between disbelief and cautious hope. Then, with 4 minutes left, disaster struck again. Mason threw a deep pass toward Elijah, a perfect spiral, but just as Elijah leaped to catch it, defensive back shoved him midair. The crowd screamed for a flag, but none came. Elijah hit the ground hard, clutching his shoulder. The ball bounced loose. Turnover. The Commanders celebrated wildly while the Bears sideline erupted in fury. Coach Ramirez stormed toward the officials, shouting until security pulled him back. "That was interference. You're blind," he roared as Elijah was helped off the field. Mason followed, visibly shaken. "Don't worry about me," Elijah groaned. "Just finish this. Prove them wrong." Mason nodded silently. With 2 minutes left, something miraculous happened. The stadium announcer interrupted play with a breaking update. "Ladies and gentlemen, a new video has just been verified by the NFL Broadcast Network." The big screen lit up again, but this time it wasn't Marcus's footage. It was the original uncut version recorded from Lana's phone, showing the truth. Marcus's voice was clear now, sinister and manipulative. "Give me the info or I'll ruin your career." Mason's voice replied, "Do whatever you want, but stay away from my sister." Gasps rippled through the crowd. The entire narrative flipped in an instant. Fans who had booed moments ago were now cheering. Commentators shouted over each other in disbelief. This changes everything. Trent wasn't selling plays, he was protecting his family. Marcus's face went pale in the press box. Security immediately surrounded him as reporters flooded the area. He tried to leave, but it was too late. Fans pointed, yelling, "Get him out!" The entire stadium turned against him. And down on the field, Mason finally allowed himself to breathe, but the game wasn't over yet. With 90 seconds remaining and the ball back in Chicago's hands, they had one last chance to tie. The crowd roared with renewed fire. Mason looked up toward the stands. Saw Lana standing near the tunnel, tears in her eyes, mouthing the words, "Finish this." And with that, the final drive began, a drive that would decide not only the game but Mason's redemption. What no one expected, though, was that Marcus wasn't done fighting back. Because as security escorted him out, he made one last call, a call that would send shockwaves through the entire league before the night was over. As the final minute ticked down, The air inside Soldier Field felt electric and dangerous all at once. Every fan was standing, shouting, trembling, caught between hope and disbelief. The scoreboard glared down at everyone. Commanders 34, Bears 27. 1 minute, 1 touchdown. That's all that stood between humiliation and redemption. Mason Trent stood in the huddle, sweat running down his face, his breathing uneven. Elijah Cross was still on the sideline with his arm in a sling, shouting directions through the pain. "You got this, man!" he yelled. "Forget everything else. Finish it." Mason looked up at him and nodded once. The players lined up. The camera zoomed in on Mason's eyes, intense, haunted, determined. The crowd quieted for just a heartbeat before the snap. The ball hit his hands. He dropped back, dodged a rush, and fired a perfect strike down the middle, complete 15 yards. The stadium erupted. They hurried back to the line. 40 seconds left. Every second felt like an hour. But somewhere in the bowels of the stadium, chaos was unfolding that no one on the field knew about. Marcus Hayes, now being escorted through the tunnel by security, had made a call to someone inside the NFL's media control room, someone who still owed him a favor. The voice on the other end whispered, "You really want to do this?" Marcus's tone was cold. "Play the file." "The new one?" Back on the Jumbotron, just as the Bears snapped the ball for the next play, the screen flickered again. This time, it wasn't Mason or Marcus, it was Lana. A new video appeared showing her arguing with someone off camera, her voice trembling. "You promised you'd protect him," she shouted. A man's voice responded, and it wasn't Marcus's. It was someone else's, familiar to Bears fans everywhere. "Coach Ramirez." Familiar to Bears fans everywhere. "Coach Ramirez." The crowd froze. The clip continued. "I told you, Lana," Ramirez's voice said. "I can't protect him if he keeps lying to the team. If the league finds out what he did before the draft." The video cut off abruptly, the sound replaced by static. Fans gasped. Mason looked up at the screen mid-play, confusion flashing across his face. He fumbled the snap, barely recovering it before throwing the ball away. Whistles blew. The play was dead. Everyone was shouting now, players, coaches, fans. No one knew what the clip meant. Before the draft. What was Ramirez hiding? Reporters scrambled to verify it while the stadium's control booth tried to figure out who had hijacked the broadcast. Marcus smirked as he was dragged through the tunnel, whispering, "Checkmate." On the field, Ramirez's face turned pale. Players stared at him in disbelief. Darius Lee muttered, "Coach, what is that about?" Ramirez ignored him, barking orders instead. "Get lined up. We're not done yet." But inside, he knew everything was unraveling. Mason approached him cautiously. "Coach," he said under his breath, "what did he mean before the draft?" Ramirez didn't answer right away. Then he muttered, "Not now, kid." But Mason pressed, "If you know something, I need to know now." Ramirez glared at him. "You want the truth? You shouldn't even be here, Trent." Mason froze. "What?" Ramirez sighed, rubbing his forehead. "That tape Marcus just played. It's real. Before the draft, the team found out something that should have disqualified you. Your shoulder injury. You weren't supposed to pass the medical. But I covered it up. I wanted you here. I believed in you." T looked away. The league found out and they started investigating. Marcus got that info somehow. That's why he had leverage. Mason felt the ground tilt beneath him. "So, he knew. That's how he blackmailed me." Ramirez nodded grimly. He wasn't bluffing, Mason. He had everything. For a moment, Mason stood still, trying to process it all. His secret injury, the blackmail, his sister, the betrayal. It all made sense now. He wasn't just fighting for his name anymore. He was fighting for his entire career. The referee's whistle brought him back. 30 seconds remaining. Mason took a deep breath, looked at his teammates, and shouted, "Let's finish this." The next snap came fast. Mason dodged one rusher, then another, spinning to his right and throwing deep toward the end zone. The ball sailed through the air, spiraling perfectly, and was caught by Darius Lee just short of the goal line. The crowd lost its mind. 3 seconds left. 1 play to go. As the team huddled, Elijah limped back onto the field, ignoring the trainers yelling after him. "One more," he said through gritted teeth. "Let me in." Mason smiled faintly. "You sure?" Elijah smirked. "I didn't come this far to watch from the bench." They lined up for the final play. The entire stadium was shaking from the noise. Mason looked left, then right, meeting Elijah's eyes one last time. The ball snapped. Mason faked a handoff, rolled right, and fired a bullet to ward Elijah in the corner of the end zone. Time seemed to freeze. Elijah leaped, catching the ball midair, twisting his body as he fell backward. Touchdown. The crowd erupted like a thunderstorm. Bears fans screamed, hugging strangers, tears streaming down faces. Players poured onto the field. The score was tied. Overtime, but even as the celebration exploded around them. Mason's eyes flicked to the tunnel where security was dragging Marcus away. And for just a second, he saw Marcus grin, whispering something to the camera. Later, lip readers would confirm what he said. This isn't over. As overtime began, chaos off the field grew worse. News outlets started reporting breaking details about the leaked video involving Coach Ramirez. Some said it proved he falsified medical reports. Others claimed the footage was doctored. No one knew what to believe. The NFL released a quick statement. The integrity of the broadcast is under investigation. But the damage was already done. In the stands, Lana sat shaking, overwhelmed. She had saved Mason once, but now it felt like another storm was brewing, one even she couldn't stop. She texted Elijah, "Whatever happens next, protect him." The overtime coin toss went to the Bears. Mason took the field again, jaw set, eyes cold. Every step felt heavier than the last, but he refused to let the noise break him. "We end this," he told his team. "We end it right now." The drive started perfectly. Short passes, quick runs, steady momentum. Mason's focus was surgical. Washington's defense looked tired, unprepared for this sudden resurgence. Fans started chanting again, Trent. T-R-E-N-T, Trent. But 20 yards from the end zone, something unexpected happened. A referee stopped the play. There was confusion near the sideline. Officials huddled, headsets crackling. After a tense moment, a head ref made the announcement. Official review, possible equipment violation on the quarterback. The stadium went silent. Mason stared baffled. Equipment violation? What are they talking about? One of the refs pointed at his helmet. "Your radio's been picking up unauthorized frequencies. Someone's been listening to your play calls." The sideline erupted. Ramirez threw his clipboard. "He's still doing it." He shouted. Marcus is still in control. The broadcast replay showed faint interference sounds during Mason's calls, static, clicks, echoes. It was clear someone had tapped into the team's communication system. The game was paused while security and technicians scrambled to locate the signal source. They traced it not to the press box, but to a van parked outside the stadium. The license plate matched Marcus Hayes Media Company. The revelation hit the crowd like lightning. Boos thundered through the stadium. Reporters shouted questions, cameras flashed, NFL officials ran down to the field. The game was momentarily suspended while the feed was secured. Mason sat on the bench, head in his hands. Elijah sat beside him. "He's not just trying to ruin you," Elijah said quietly. "He's trying to take the whole team down." Mason nodded, "But not tonight." After a tense 15-minute delay, the refs announced that play would resume. The crowd cheered wildly, united again behind their quarterback. Mason stood, grabbed his helmet, and said simply, "Let's finish this once and for all." The final drive was cinematic precision, power, and defiance in every step. Mason moved the ball downfield with ruthless efficiency, ignoring the noise, the pressure, the scandals. The last play came down to 4th and goal. Washington's defense crowded the line. Mason took the snap, faked a throw, and ran it himself. Diving over a defender into the end zone, touchdown. Game over, the stadium exploded. Fireworks lit the night sky. The Bears had done it. Victory against all odds, all chaos, all lies. Mason stood in the end zone, helmet off, breathing hard, tears in his eyes. Elijah limped toward him and hugged him tightly. "You did it, man," he whispered. But the cameras were already moving away from the celebration, focusing on the chaos unfolding near the tunnel. Marcus, now surrounded by reporters and security, was shouting something over the noise. "This isn't just about football. You'll all see the truth soon." And then, before anyone could stop him, he dropped a flash drive on the ground. Lana, standing nearby, recognized it instantly, the same drive Marcus had once shown her, claiming it held everything. And she knew, deep down, the storm was far from over. The confetti had barely started falling when everything changed again. The crowd was still roaring from Mason Trent's game-winning dive. Players were hugging, and reporters were rushing the field. It was supposed to be a triumphant moment, the kind of story that would go down in Chicago sports history. But even as Mason stood there, breathing hard and smiling through tears, he saw something that made his blood run cold. Security guards near the tunnel were wrestling with Marcus Hayes, who was shouting something over the chaos. The flash drive he had dropped moments earlier lay on the turf, half crushed under someone's cleat, the metallic glint catching the light from the cameras. Lana Trent pushed through the crowd, desperate to reach it before anyone else did. Mason noticed her from the field. "Lana?" he whispered, confused, seeing her run down the sideline. But she wasn't coming to celebrate. She was running toward the danger. Elijah, still grimacing from his injured shoulder, followed her gaze and muttered, "What's she doing?" Before anyone could stop her, Lana snatched the flash drive off the ground just as an NFL official lunged to grab it. "Ma'am, that's evidence," the official said firmly. Lana backed away, clutching it. The official said firmly. Lana backed away, clutching it tightly. "You don't understand," she said breathlessly. "You can't let him have this." Cameras zoomed in on the confrontation. Every news outlet had their lenses pointed at her. She could feel millions of eyes watching, and her heart pounded in her chest. Marcus laughed bitterly as security restrained him. "Go ahead, Lana. Plug it in. Let them see what your brother's really hiding." The crowd, already buzzing, fell eerily silent again. Mason's face turned pale as he jogged toward them. Confusion and fear etched across his face. "What's going on?" he shouted. The official took a step forward. "Ma'am, please hand it over." Lana shook her head slowly. "Not until I know what's on it." She turned to Mason, tears in her eyes. "He said this proves everything. He said it would destroy you." Mason stopped short, breathing unevenly. "Then don't play it," he said softly. "Not here." But the media was already circling like vultures. Microphones extended toward them, reporters shouting questions over one another. "Is it true, Mason? What's on the drive? Are you still under investigation?" Coach Ramirez pushed through the chaos, his face grim. "Everybody back up," he barked, trying to shield Mason and Lana. The game's over. We're done here. But the crowd wasn't done. The cameras weren't done. Marcus, still struggling against the guards, screamed, "Play it. You all deserve to know the truth." And then it happened. One of the reporters, an overeager freelancer desperate for a scoop, snatched the flash drive from Lana's hand and plugged it into his portable monitor. The screen flickered to life. Everyone turned. Mason's stomach dropped. The video was a collection of clips, voice messages, and documents. At first, it looked like more of Marcus's manipulations, heavily edited conversations between players, coaches, and team officials. But then one particular clip appeared that made everyone's hearts stop. It showed Mason, weeks before the season started, sitting in a dimly lit gym, talking to someone off camera. His voice was tired, bitter. "I don't know how much longer I can fake this," he said. "The shoulder's not healed. If they find out, I'm done," fans gasped. Ramirez closed his eyes, knowing the damage that would cause. "He's admitting it," one of the commentators said softly. "He's saying his injury was worse than he told the team." Another replied, "If that's true, the team could lose draft picks, maybe even face sanctions." Mason's hands trembled. "That's not the whole video," he said quickly, voice shaking. "He's cutting it again, twisting it." But it didn't matter. The crowd had already turned restless. The boos began soft at first, then louder. Elijah stepped between Mason and the reporters. "Back off," he growled. "You've got no idea what really happened." Lana was crying now. "He's been saving this," she said. "He told me months ago if things ever turned against him, he'd burn everyone down with him." The officials ordered the feed shut off, but it was too late. The footage had already been streamed live. Millions had seen it. Marcus smirked as the guards dragged him toward the exit. "You can't win, Trent," he said over his shoulder. "You can play hero for one night, but the league doesn't forgive liars." Mason lunged forward, shouting, "You ruined lives for what? Attention." Marcus just laughed. "For the truth, and maybe a little revenge." As security pulled him away, Marcus shouted one final thing that sent shockwaves through everyone within earshot. "Ask your coach why he forged your medical clearance." Gasps spread through the reporters like wildfire. They turned toward Ramirez. "Coach, is that true? Did you forge documents for Trent?" Ramirez's jaw tightened. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then he muttered, "This press conference is over." He turned and walked off the field, ignoring the shouts and flashing lights behind him. Mason stared after him. Realization sinking in that everything Marcus had hinted at might actually be true. The next few minutes were a blur. Security escorted the players to the locker room. Fans began filing out, buzzing with confusion and anger. Social media was in flames again, half of the posts defending Mason, the other half demanding his suspension. Analysts on live broadcasts were already debating what the league would do next inside the locker room. The atmosphere was suffocating. No one spoke for a long time. Elijah sat beside Mason, shoulder wrapped in ice, silent. Finally, he said, "So, is it true?" Mason didn't look up. "The injury. Yeah, it never healed right, but I passed the test anyway. Ramirez helped me cover it up." Elijah sighed deeply. "Man, you could have told me." Mason's voice cracked. "I couldn't. If the team found out, I'd be done. I just wanted one more shot." Lana entered quietly, still clutching her phone. "They're saying the league's opening an investigation," she said softly. "They might suspend you until it's over." Mason nodded, resigned. "I figured." He leaned back against the locker, staring at the floor. "I won the game, but I lost everything else." Elijah frowned. "Not everything." Mason looked at him confused. Elijah continued, "You still got your name. We'll fight it. We'll show everyone what really happened." Mason smiled faintly. "You really think anyone's gonna believe me after all that?" Elijah shrugged. "Doesn't matter what they believe. Matters what's true." Outside the locker room, reporters swarmed the hallway. NFL officials were already holding emergency meetings. Rumors spread that Marcus had been taken into custody for tampering with league communications. Others said he had disappeared before police could reach his vehicle. No one knew what to believe anymore. As the night wore on, the city buzzed with confusion. Bars that had been celebrating the Bears' victory turned quiet as televisions replayed the scandal again and again. The headlines screamed betrayal and conspiracy. Talk shows speculated on who was lying, who was covering, for whom, and what it all meant for the team. Meanwhile, back inside the now empty stadium, Mason returned to the field alone. The confetti still shimmered under the lights, but it felt hollow now. He looked around at the empty stands and whispered, "This was supposed to fix everything." The wind carried his words into the silence. Then he heard footsteps. Lana approached slowly, her coat pulled tight around her. "You did the right thing," she said quietly. "You protected me." Mason shook his head. "And ruined myself." She smiled sadly. "Maybe, but you did it for love, not greed. People will see that." He looked at her, unsure. "You think so?" She nodded. "The truth always finds its way out, even if it takes time." He sighed, glancing toward the tunnel where Marcus had last been seen. He said, "This isn't over." Lana followed his gaze. "Maybe it isn't. But he's not the one writing the ending anymore. They stood there in silence for a long moment, the field empty and still. Far off, the city skyline shimmered against the dark sky. Mason finally turned away and said, "Come on, let's go home." But as they walked toward the exit, the stadium's big screen flickered once more. For just a second, a single phrase appeared in white text over a black background, "To be continued." The lights dimmed, leaving the field in darkness, and fans watching the live broadcast at home sat in stunned silence. No one knew what it meant. Was Marcus still out there planning his next move? Was the footage part of a larger cover-up? Or was someone else pulling the strings the whole time? Whatever the truth was, one thing was certain: this game, this night. And this scandal would be remembered forever as the most dramatic, twisted, and unbelievable chapter in NFL history. And for Mason Trent, the story was far from over. And just like that, the night that began as a simple Week 6 matchup between the Chicago Bears and the Washington Commanders turned into something much bigger, a story of betrayal, redemption, and secrets that shook the entire NFL. Mason Trent's touchdown might have sealed the win on the field, but off the field, the real game has just begun. Questions still hang heavy in the air. Will the league suspend him for the hidden injury? Will Coach Ramirez face punishment for the forged clearance? And most importantly, where is Marcus Hayes now, and what else is on that missing flash drive? Fans everywhere are divided, emotions running wild. Some calling Mason a hero who protected his family, others calling him a fraud who risked everything for glory. Even Lana Trent, once the quiet sister in the background, has become a headline name overnight. Her messages and tears dissected by the media for clues to what's really going on. But what do you think? Was Mason Trent justified in keeping his secret? Was Marcus a villain, or just exposing a corrupt system? And could this scandal unravel more than just one man's career, maybe even the integrity of the entire league? Let us know in the comments what you believe really happened behind the scenes that night. Did the Bears truly win? Or was it all part of a bigger setup? Don't forget to hit the like button if you were on the edge of your seat through all the twists. And make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next shocking chapter in this ongoing NFL saga. Turn on notifications because, trust me, the next reveal is coming soon and it's going to change everything. Reveal is coming soon and it's going to change everything.